Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. The original Jaeger LeCoultre Polaris debuted in 1965 as a dive watch with an alarm. The definitive version, the Polaris 68, was made from that year through 1970. Briefly revived as a tribute model in 2008, it became a full-time model line in 2018, and what you're seeing right here is the Jaeger LeCoultre Polaris Geographic, a model launched in 2024 using a complication, the Geographic, that JLC originally debuted on a dress watch in 1989. Now that we've got the potted history out of the way, let's talk about what this steel watch has to offer. So 42 millimeters in diameter, it's 14.1 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. The watch has a wingspan of 48.8 millimeters across the wrist and a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. I throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. Wears nicely. Being under 49 millimeters lug to lug, it fits well. It's also not exceptionally thick, and with the stepped case flank and the domed crystal, it slides fairly easily under a cuff. I'd recommend this watch for a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference and up. Again, my wrist is 16. The strap's a nice piece. Like many Polaris straps in the modern day collection, it's not really based on the vintage Tropic, or at least not explicitly. It's a conforming piece that matches the slope of the lugs, but also the curve of the case for a very integrated aesthetic. No daylight between strap and case. There's a little bit of fight and a little bit of flare, although it's not onerous. On the bottom, there's some evacuations to thin out the material, make it more pliant, but also allow the wrist to breathe a little bit. You can see a brand new JLC vulcanized rubber factory strap, absolutely no crimping, no gouging. We'll go over to the clasp, and this is JLC's latest double folding clasp. Taking a look externally, we have satin and polish, the JL logo, double folding clasp, snap shut friction fit. We have a push button that allows you to remove the clasp from the watch without tools and also remount it without tools. And then closer to the case, you can see we have these twin pull tabs that allow you to remove the strap without tools and replace straps without tools. So you get the best of a quick release system, but without being locked into a proprietary strap system. Think Cartier Roadster there. So you get the best of both worlds, quick release, and you can fit aftermarket straps. Since 2018, these Polaris models have been designed to be less of a tribute and more of a modern vision of what Polaris might have become as it stayed in production nonstop from the 60s through the current era. So the lugs are a little bit different. You can see that they're more sculpted and refined with facets in polish and satin. You can see there's a little bit of a downward tuck to the squared off end, that the lugs are stepped rather than blending into the mid case. And you can see that we're talking about a modular complication here because the crown is so far below the center line of the case. You can also see we have a secondary crown. This is used to adjust the geographic function. That could be a little bit confusing because the original Polaris featured an internal rotating bezel, and I think it's important to remember here that this bezel is a little bit different because it does not rotate. It does give you reference points, but the actual adjustment is of the geographic function. And you can see that the crystal is still dramatically boxed and cambered. This part of the watch still looks very true to history, like something you would have seen on a plexiglass in the 60s. Then we have a very narrow, polished, double-faceted steel bezel. In fact, when you look at it from the front, it's almost impossible to see the bezel. The dial has a combination of brushed metallic sunburst, gradient fade lacquer, and a lovely chiseled or frosted hour track outboard. You can see the dial has excellent depth. We have tri-Arabic numerals and indices, which are all appliqué. There's a lovely amount of gloss on every surface. And then we'll do a lume shot so you can see more easily what this watch looks like in the dark, and it is quite well loomed. Also note that the watch features a seconds hand that is luminescent, so you do know whether the watch is running in the dark. So taking a quick look at the geographic feature, JLC created this, and this was sort of an original. Somewhere between a world time and a dual time, it incorporates elements of both. So we have a second dial. It moves in 12-hour circuits, just like the time at center. So you can see these two things are coupled together. But if I want to know whether I'm looking at, for example, 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. down there, I look to the side. Now I can see that I'm 6 hours past midnight, so I am looking at 6 a.m. And as I continue to move along, you will see that little orange index adjacent moves into the white semicircle, which indicates daytime hours. Also note that we have this lovely granular texture across the subdial as well as the hour track, and it looks really, really nice. There's a few well-chosen orange accents, and then there's a power reserve indicator. It's an automatic watch, but if you wish to wind it manually, you can see the power reserve move visibly. Another thing important to mention, that if you want to set that subdial independent from the cities and independent from the center time, you can do so with the crown in an intermediate position. So just keep that in mind. That's there if you want it. Now, 24 principal time zones represented by 24 reference cities. That's how the geographic works. Basically, you just set whatever city of reference is of interest to you, and the watch does the math. Now, you can see that there are little extensions next to some of the city names. Those are cities, or regions, I should say, like Rio de Janeiro, that use summertime and wintertime. So you can jump back and forth between the asterisks and the city itself. So I'm in Philadelphia, so I'm going to use New York, U.S. East Coast time. Turn it all over. The watch is 100 meters water resistant, which is convenient for swimming and suitable for swimming. And there is a sticker on this case back to protect it. It's still in its original factory shipping sticker. So if things look a little bit grimy, grubby, or indistinct here, it's because there is a sticker over. But it also means the condition's excellent. It goes through the Master 1000 Hours Control, which is a 41.6 day, 6-position chronometric test of the fully cased up movement. JLC typically adjusts to -1 + 6 seconds, so a little bit better than chronometer. And remember, chronometer is a 5-position test for 2 weeks of the bare movement. This is 6 positions, 41.6 days, and a fully assembled watch. The test also incorporates winding efficiency, power reserve, durability, and water resistance. This is the 939. It's now a 70-hour power reserve. It's unidirectional winding with ceramic bearings because JLC found out empirically that unidirectional is more efficient than bidirectional. They're the same in the lab, but different on the wrist. So unidirectional is better. Ceramic bearings, or at least steel races and ceramic balls, more efficient, lower maintenance. We have here an interesting and recent evolution. As you can see, JLC is using a silicone escapement, which reduces the need for lubrication, reduces the mass in motion, and improves performance in between servicings. Finally, we have a free-sprung balance with KIF shock protection. The free-sprung balance uses variable inertia screws on the rim to change the timing. This is both very precise and very shock resistant, as shock and concussion cannot move the screw and change the timing. And the beat rate is 4 Hertz. You can see that the watch features 34 pivot jewels, and while it is primarily mechanically finished, there are some artisanal elements. It's hand assembled and adjusted, and we have genuine fire-blued screws, which are always a treat. So if you love this watch, I think we're going to throw it on the wrist one more time. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability details.